And welcome everybody to Shark Fest. I wish I had know how to put the Jaws music in because that's pretty iconic. But we're ready to get going. I know that everybody here is super excited about sharks. We've already seen a whole bunch of different shark teeth that people have collected from different areas. And in the chat box, if you want to continue to do that, I'm going to be handing it over to Tom. I'll be sharing my screen. And Tom Piscatelli is going to be the instructor for this evening, as I mentioned before. Mason is going to be curating the questions. All questions are very much encouraged, so please put your questions in and we'll make sure that we get to all of them before the evening is done. All right. And everybody knows where the bathroom is, so anytime you need to get up and go, that's fine too. All right. Tom, you can go ahead and unmute, and we're sending it your way. You're still muted, Tom.
Okay, I'm trying.
You're actually unmuted. We can hear you.
You can hear me now?
Yes.
Okay, great. Thank you. Good evening, everybody, and welcome. I'm going to be talking this evening, you can call me Tom, by the way, about an introduction to the features of shark teeth. I've been a fossil hunter for over 50 years. I began collecting in my birth state of Pennsylvania, and then I collected in Ohio, where I went to high school. It was only though when I moved to Maryland that I found shark's teeth at the world famous Calvert Cliffs. I enjoyed finding shark's teeth, but I never made the effort to identify the shark that lost it. There were always other more experienced collectors that would do that for me. For Shark Fest, I was asked to do a piece on identifying shark's teeth. So I looked at various online guides. Quickly, I became discouraged by all the technical scientific terms. When I looked up these words, I could not always understand their meaning. There were no pictures to help make it clearer. This is an effort to show and explain shark tooth features. With them, you can use the guides to identify the shark's genus and species. Let's begin with features of the shark's tooth crown and end with characteristics of their roots. Link to some of the guides will be shown at the end. Next, please. When you're hunting for a shark's fossil tooth, a fossil shark tooth, the first thing that may catch your eye is the enamel blade or crown, which is shown in this picture of the tooth. You'll notice it because the enamel surface shines or glistens in the sunlight, whether it's wet from the water or dry from a quarry. The enamel is usually the only remaining original material from the fossil shark. The crown is the part of the tooth that was above the shark's gum. Sharks have very differently shaped crowns to catch and kill different prey. Sharks are carnivores. Because they do not eat plants, they do not need grinding teeth. This broadly shaped crown is used to tear into larger prey, biting off chunks that the shark can swallow. Next, please. Unfortunately, there is no one set of words or standardization of terms to describe shark tooth features. While crown is used most often, the cutting or piercing part of the shark's tooth can also be called a cusp or a blade. Next, please. The tooth's crown can be narrow. A narrow, sharp, and pointy crown is used to catch and hold prey. This shark's tooth also has two smaller crowns, one on each side of the main crown. These are called cusps or cusplets. Later, we'll talk about them. Under the common name sandtiger, and Bronwyn, would you put the pointer to the scientific name? Under the common name sandtiger is the scientific name. The genus is Carcharias, but the scientific species names is the letters SP. What does that mean? If the genus of the tooth is known, but the species cannot be clearly identified, the abbreviation SP or SSP are used. SP stands for singular species, and SPP indicates that several species are likely. Next, please. A shark's crown can have this wide triangular shape. Next, please. Or the crown can be thick and rounded with ridges. These teeth are from a bottom-feeding shark. The teeth are used to crack the shells of clams and other types of bivalves, or to break open a crab shell or exoskeleton. Next, please. A crown can be thick or thin. This side view of a megalodon's tooth shows its thickness and a cutting edge. Some large megalodon teeth can weigh over a pound. Next, please. This side view is of a great white shark's tooth. It is very thin in cross-section as compared to a megalodon's tooth. Next, please. A shark's tooth crown can be long or short. The crown can be angled or straight and symmetrically centered from the root. And you can see the various different width and lengths of the different shark's teeth in the picture. Next, please. Some crowns can be curved or they can be notched. The function of a tooth is significantly related to its form. Narrow, sharp, pointy teeth can hold on to slippery fish or squid, preventing their escape. Broad, both serrated or non-serrated teeth are used to cut chunks of flesh from large fish or mammals. Sharks do not chew their prey. They swallow their food. Next, please. This shark's tooth has a more rounded shape. Note that the jagged cutting edges differ in size. So some are bigger and some are smaller as you look at the various jagged, called serrations, along the edge of the tooth. Next, please. Some sharks had differently shaped tooth crowns in their upper and lower jaws. In the picture, the teeth pointing down are upper teeth, and those pointing up are from our lower teeth. Next, please. This shark also had narrow, pointy teeth to hold their prey in its lower jaw. These are the teeth pointing up. The upper jaw teeth were broad and serrated to cut larger prey into pieces that could be swallowed. The top picture is an upper tooth shown from the front and back sides. Being able to recognize which side of a tooth is important to identification. More about that later. The bottom left shows a lower tooth from the back and a side profile. The right bottom shows the same tooth from the back and from the front sides. Next, please. Whale and basking shark do not use their teeth, these are teeth from a whale shark, to capture food. These sharks filter feed, capturing food in their gill rakers. Their food is plankton. Plankton is made of small animals like shrimp, larvae, animal eggs, and very small fish. They use their teeth to hold on to each other while mating. That's what the use of the teeth is for the whale and basking sharks. Next, please. I have used this tooth, again, showing the front and back side of the tooth in the past. Now, how do you know which is the tooth's front side? The side that faces you, if you are being attacked, is the front side. And that's what's shown in this picture. So the front side of the tooth, well, actually, I'm wrong when I tell you that, because what's shown in this picture is the lingual side of the tooth, and that is the back side of the tooth. So forgive me, let me start again. The back side of the shark's tooth is shown in the picture. This is the side that faces inward to the inside of the shark's mouth. Technically, these sides are called, this side is called lingual. The lingual side shown above faces the inside of the shark's mouth. The name comes from the Latin word for tongue. The lingual surface is usually slightly rounded with a convex shape. This rounded, wedge-shaped inner side of the shark tooth moves the sliced off flesh of its prey further into the shark's mouth so it can be swallowed. Next, please. This is the front side of that same tooth. It is called the labial or display side. It faces out toward the shark's snout or the front of the shark. It's what you would see if a shark is attacking you. The name comes from the Latin word for lips. The labial side has a flatter surface than the backside or the lingual side. Next, please. Just look at the left side picture. Which side of the tooth is shown? It is the lingual side, which faces the inside of the shark's mouth. Now look at the picture on the right side. It is a side view of this same tooth, which has the labial and lingual sides labeled. Below the tooth is the term, and if you would, Bronwyn, mark that, lower anterior. That's right, yes. Lower, can you see that there? Lower anterior. An anterior tooth means it's one of the shark's larger front teeth. Shark tooth positions are coming up later. The protrusion, or the part that sticks out on the lingual or mouth side, helps prevent damage in the shark's mouth. Also note, looking at the labial side view, that would be the tooth on the right, on the left-hand side of that tooth. The left side from the root, the crown begins to curve in, but then as it gets closer to the tooth's tip, it curves slightly back out again. What purpose do you think that served? Hold on to that thought. Next, please. How the crown meets up with the root is an important feature. The tooth on the right side shows that the crown can narrow toward the root to form what's called a shoulder. And you, Bronwyn, if you can mark that there, yes, that's the shoulder. You see how that tooth is indented with a notch, and then it begins to play out horizontally more than vertically, and so that's called a shoulder. The notch in the the indentation in the crown causes it to narrow. The tooth on the left shows that the root and crown can match up evenly. Two other technical terms in this picture are at the top, apical, A-P-I-C-A-L, and at the bottom, In the middle, it says basal. The top of each tooth is labeled apical. Apical refers to the area toward the tip portion or the apex of the crown. Basal is the area where the base of the tooth joins the tooth's root. Now, look at the tooth on the left. The opposite sides of the cutting edges are marked with the terms mesial and distal. Can you show those? Yeah, there's the mesial, and then across on the opposite side is the distal. We're going to discuss what those mean shortly. The cutting edges on both of these teeth, well, yes, on both of these teeth have the term serrations or jagged edges. Let's talk about serrations next. Next picture, please. Some crowns have smooth, sharp edges. Others have jagged, sharp cutting edges, like on a steak knife or a saw. The technical term is serrations. Serrations may cover only a portion of the full length of the crown. On some teeth, like the tiger shark shown above, the serrations stop before the tip. Its tip is smooth to puncture its prey. As the tooth enters deeper, the serrations cut into the flesh. In other sharks' teeth, the serrations stop before the root. In others, the serrations get smaller in size toward the tip. The tiger shark's favorite prey is sea turtles. Its strong tip can break through the turtle's shell. What happens to the swallowed turtle shell? The tiger shark can push its stomach out of its mouth to get rid of turtle shell material. How about that? Next, please. This is a close-up picture of a modern tiger shark tooth. It shows that the serrations can be serrated with even smaller ones. Modern shark teeth have been found with all kinds of non-food items in their stomach, like tires, license plates, and other things. It will attack anything, but prefers sea turtles, as we talked about. The mere presence of a tiger shark will cause the turtles to leave the area. This preserves the sea grasses, which produce more oxygen for a comparable area as of the rainforest. And then by the tiger sharks coming around the feeding sea turtles, they leave the area and preserve the grasses. Next, please. Serrations can be described as coarse or fine. There is no mathematical definition of what is coarse or fine, and that can vary from person to person. These are called coarse serrations. They are on the bottom section of a great white tooth. Next, please. These coarse serrations are on the top portion of a great white tooth. Notice that the serrations vary in size. This would be an important feature in identification of the shark. Next, please. The Ototus megalodon's tooth serrations, they're hard to see in this picture actually, are smaller. They're described as finer in size. Next, please. This is a magnified picture of the Megalodon serrations. You can see that these fine serrations are packed closely together with no spaces separating them. Next, please. Again, a picture of the Megalodon's smaller fine serrations. This tooth has attractive colorization. Later, we will talk about shark tooth colors. Next, please. Now, this is kind of a busy picture, but we're going to work our way through it. Earlier, we saw the terms mesial and distal. This picture identifies the distal and mesial parts of the cutting edges. You can, if you would, there you go. You can see this, the mesial side is toward the inside of that, both that pictures, and then the distal sides are the outside of both of those teeth. This is the same tooth. Again, it's shown as is labeled. Can you tell which is the lingual side and which is the labial side? Might be a little harder from this picture, but the lingual side, you can see the crown has kind of convex or is kind of rounded on that, whereas the labial side, which faces outward as if you were being attacked by the shark, is flatter. Back to the mesial and distal. The distal edges, which are on the outside in both these pictures, faces away from the middle of the jaw toward the corner of the shark's mouth. The mesial cutting edges face toward the midline at the front of the jaw. Sometimes these terms are used in descriptions of a shark's tooth in identification. The picture is labeled pointing out the areas toward the tip again as apical and toward the root as basal. And you can see those marked on there. Thank you, Barbara, for pointing that out. Also on the far right, the coarse, irregular size serrations of this tooth are shown in magnification. And you can see that there are different size individual serrations that pop up there. Okay. Next, please. Shark tooth with cusplets. Some remember the term cusp or cutlets cusplets we talked about earlier. Let me get a drink here. I'm getting dry. Some shark teeth have one or more small additional crowns on the main crown. These are called cusplets. The cusplets are located at the far side of the crown where it meets the root. They can be useful in grasping prey. This shark tooth cusplets are serrated. Other shark cusplets are not. Note that the main crown serrations really vary in size. This is an important feature in its identification. And you can really see the difference in the size of the serrations as you look up and down the cutting edge of the tooth. Next, please. The shape of the cusplets can be rounded, pointy, or sawtooth. The cusplet shape is an important identifier. This tooth's main crown is smooth and has no serrations. Thank you, Bronwyn, for going down the sides of the cutting edges there, and they are perfectly smooth. Next, please. Cusp with serrations also aided the shark by cutting into the prey's flesh as the shark shook its head. And if you've seen some of the things on TV with shark, you'll see them shaking their head back and forth. This uses the serrations as well as serrated teeth, the cusplets rather, as well as serrated teeth cut into the flesh of the prey. Both the cusplets and the main crown of this tooth have serrations. Next, please. There's also a lot of same terms we've been talking about on this picture that you have, but let's review some important features that we have discussed. This picture shows the tooth from the lingual side, which is on the left. It is somewhat convex and faces into the shark's mouth. On the right is the labial or display side, which you would see if a shark came at you. It has a flatter surface. The direction of each cutting edge faces is either distal or mesial. Distal means the cutting edge is in the direction of the corner of the shark's jaw. If the cutting edge is toward the midline of the jaw, it faces mesial. A shark's jaw actually has two pieces that come to the right side and the left side. And they join together in the middle. And so that's when it talks about the midline. The area at the tip of the tooth is termed apical, and the area toward its root is called basal. This tooth has a distinctive borlet. And if you would put this pointer on that, please. The borlet is seen on the lingual, only on the lingual side of the tooth. The genus name for this tooth, and it's a distinctive band which occurs between the root and the enamel of the crown of the tooth. The genus name for this tooth is shown as a capital C. And the species after the genus name. This tooth and the next three teeth, the genus name has been changed from Carcharocles to a genus name of Otodus. Changes in genuses are made as more information is found out about the sharks. Most importantly, the species name is never changed. When writing the genus and species, the first letter of the genus name is always capitalized, whereas the species name is in small letters.
Let me just remind everybody to stay muted. Everybody stay muted so we can pay attention to time and not have costs.
Next, please. Okay, so now again, on the particular picture, it's marked as Carcharocles, but in fact, it's now called Otodus. This shark lived through three epochs, the Oligocene, the Miocene, and the Pliocene. These large teeth are referred to as megatooth sharks. Again, many paleontologists now call this Otodus chubutensis. Chub is used, you'll see on the very side in red, I've used the term chub. Many fossil hunters, when referring to this tooth, call it a chub. The lingual side view is shown of this tooth. The distinctive area between the root and the crown, which is termed a borlet or chevron, and thank you, Bronwyn, for pointing that out, is shown there. Okay, let's go to the next one. We have already seen these individual teeth. Here they're all grouped together to show the teeth as they evolved over time from the Paleocene to the Miocene to eventually become the Megalodon tooth, which is the largest predatory shark that ever lived. During this time span, you'll see that it's marked on the picture. During this time span, the cutting edges change from smooth, which is the Otodus, and going up and changing to serrated, both larger and then smaller serrations as it gets to the Megalodon. The teeth gradually begin to lose their cusp. You see big cusp in the Otodus, and then in the next three species, the tusks begin to get smaller. And finally, when we get to the Megalodon, basically you do not see a cusp. However, they have found juvenile Megalodon teeth that have cusp, but as they get older, they lose them. These individual related sharks are referred to as chronospecies because they change their form or morphology over time, but they still remain related as far as sharks go. Next, please. I know somebody wanted to see a Megalodon tooth. So here's a pretty good sized Megalodon tooth. The Megalodon and its ancestor teeth all have that distinctive V-shaped band between the root and the enamel crown. Yes, and marked in red there, it says borlet. This band is called a borlet or chevron. This large meg-tooth sporlet is a very clear feature on its lingual side. And you can probably recognize this convex shape of this tooth, the view that we're looking at the surface. And so this is the lingual side of the tooth, the side that faces into the mouth of the shark. It is thought to have, the borlet is thought to have aided in holding the tooth in the shark's gum. The Ototus megalodon had the largest shark tooth ever at over 7 inches. This compares to a modern great white tooth size of just 3 inches or more, or slightly more. How a tooth side is measured is called slant height, or at least one of the methods. The slant height is measured from its tip to the end point of the root. The width of the tooth is measured across the root. Incidentally, a large megalodon tooth can weigh over a pound, and a megalodon's smallest posterior tooth is about 1/2 inch in height. Next page, please. So this is showing you how a shark tooth is, one of the ways a shark tooth is measured. And this is the color lines in the picture show one method of how a shark tooth is measured. The slant height is used especially by sellers because it results in a larger tooth size than if you measured it strictly from the tip to the middle of the root. The larger tooth size demands a higher price. And so that's one of the reasons that they've selected this method of measurement. Next, please. Let's have a little fun now. We've talked about a lot of technical things, and then this is kind of just a little fun piece. Unlike humans, sharks produce and shed their teeth all their lives. Many sharks replace individual teeth at regular intervals or when teeth were damaged or knocked out from feeding. Some sharks replaced all the teeth in the working row together at the same time. Many sharks have at least 5 rows of replacement teeth. Over a lifetime, sharks produce many thousands of teeth, as many as 35,000 in some species. I have collected shark's teeth at Calvert Cliffs for over 50 years. I could find some if I went there tomorrow. Recently, it was discovered that shark teeth contain fluoride. Sharks did not have cavities. However, some sharks' teeth did not grow perfectly. These abnormal teeth are called pathological. The term is used even though the cause may not be from a disease and usually isn't. Next, please. This malformation can result from damage while feeding. An injury can happen to the individual tooth or to the shark's jaw while feeding. An actual modern example was caused by stingray barbs or marine catfish spines. There can also be problems with gene replication that results in abnormalities to the teeth. A shark's jaw may be too small for the number of developing teeth. Developing replacement teeth in the same tooth position may have the same pathology. As shown in the picture, there may be 2 or more smaller crowns rather than the normal single large one. Some pathological crowns may be partially separated. Next picture, please. The crown of the tooth may be twisted or abnormally bent, as you see in this snaggletooth shark. We've seen pictures of regular snaggletooth sharks earlier, but here you can see how twisted the crown is. Next picture, please. We've seen the tiger shark tooth before. This tiger shark, a normal crown, wouldn't have these separated spaces. So a little tooth of a tiger shark. Next picture, please. This megalodon tooth has a wavy cutting edge on its crown. Normally, the edge of the crown would be straight down with no indentation, as you see in the picture. Some believe this is caused by the old age of the shark. Next, please. This is a megalodon tooth showing an abnormally pinched crown where it juts in as you see at the root, and that's normally not how it fits up with the root. So this is, again, another pathological tooth. Next, please. Modern shark's teeth, if you were to find one or get one from a museum or aquarium, are pure white in color. The enamel of the tooth contains oxygen. Minerals in the sediment where the shark tooth has been buried reacts with the oxygen, filling in pore spaces and changing the color of the tooth. Color is really no indication of the age of the tooth. Iron in the sediment changes the color to a reddish or brown shade. Phosphate will result in black or blue colorization. Some of the teeth shown above have a mix of colors. Next, please. This grouping of teeth shows the variety of colors in shark teeth of the same species and the same time period. And you can see the variety of colors in these teeth. Next, please. This is a picture of a modern shark's jaw. The different tooth positions are shown in this modern shark jaw. There's an inset, and you can see how that is taken from a very small portion of the right-hand side of the shark's jaw. The inset shows the multiple layers or rows of replacement teeth, which can also be called files for each tooth position. Most sharks have at least 5 rows or files of replacement teeth. If a tooth is broken or lost, it is replaced by a file replacement tooth for that tooth position. It can usually take a day or two for the tooth to be replaced. Some sharks replace a complete row of teeth at one time. A shark's front teeth are usually its largest. And if you would, Bronwyn, if you would mark where it says anterior, these are called anterior teeth. These are the shark's front teeth, their largest teeth. The back teeth are smaller and are called posterior teeth. The teeth in between are called laterals. And at the very center of the upper or the lower jaw, there is usually a smaller distinctive tooth, which is called on the upper a parasymphysial, or in the lower a symphysial tooth. There's only one of these teeth, or sometimes there may be more than one, but mostly there's one that are in the jaw, so they are very rare. I have found one of those teeth in my 50 years of hunting. Next, please. And this symphysial tooth you see in this picture is like the tooth that I found. These teeth are from my favorite shark, a cow shark named Hexanchus from the Miocene of Calvert Cliffs. At the top left is the parasymphysial upper tooth, and at the bottom left, unfortunately it's a little out of focus, is the symphysial lower tooth. Again, there's only one such tooth in the jaw. This makes it rare to find. And as I said, I've only found one in my 50 years of hunting. Note that the lower symphysial tooth cusps point both to the left and to the right. All the lower teeth to the right of the midline of the jaw, the cusps point to the right. And those teeth to the left of the midline, all the cusps point to the left. That's one of the reasons I just love this shark. It's just amazing. As you can see, the crowns of the upper teeth are very different in shapes than the lower teeth in the terms of how they have different size cusps that face in different ways than the lower teeth do. Next, please. The Natural History Society of Maryland displays this model of the Natodus megalodon's jaws. The jaws are a recreation. The original jaw material was made of cartilage. Sharks have no bones. Cartilage is this material in our human ears and nose. It is rare that cartilage is preserved as a fossil. The teeth are real fossil Megalodon teeth. They are correctly shown with their labial display side facing the viewer. These teeth were found as isolated specimens. Next, please. Look at the picture. How many different shark species are there? Let me give you a minute to think about that. How many sharks did you guess? There's only one. These are all lemon shark teeth. The variations in the crowns and roots are the result of the tooth's position in the jaw and whether it's an upper tooth or a lower tooth. The 90-degree angle teeth are lower anterior teeth at the front of the jaw. The slanted angle crown teeth would be lateral teeth. They are slanted away from the midline of the jaw toward the back edge of the mouth. There's serrations on their shoulders, which differ from the bottom teeth as well. They have no shoulders. They're, in this case, they described as wavy. That was another new term for me, wavy. Did you realize or recognize that the top two rows show the teeth in the lingual position? And the bottom two rows show the same teeth in the labial or display position. All teeth facing down are uppers, and the teeth facing up are lowers. And as I said, these are lemon sharks, and I know somebody said that was their favorite shark. These come from the late Oligocene formation in North Carolina. I hope you had some fun with that. Next, please. Most shark teeth are found as individual fossils. It's extremely rare to find associated shark's teeth. These teeth were found as individuals. Paleontologists are forced to use the tooth form or morphology to name and describe the type of shark, since sharks have no bones and cartilage and skin preservation rarely happens. Tooth size and shape varies both in the same individual and between individuals. Tooth size and shape can be different for males and females of the same species. Changes also occur as the individual ages or their diet changes. A juvenile's teeth may change as they become adults. Juvenile cusplets may be lost, or cusplets may be added with age. Serrations may be added or lost. The number of teeth, the number of serrations may increase or decrease with age. Even the thickness of the crown may decrease in the larger adult version of the tooth, which seems to be counterindicated. You would think it would get bigger. Previous pictures have shown sharks with different forms in their upper and lower teeth. A tooth shape, root form, and size changes with its position in the jaw. Determining a tooth position is learned from finding associated teeth and from modern related shark jaws. Both identification of the type of shark and the relationship between sharks is difficult and an ongoing challenge. While it may be possible to identify the shark's genus, determining the species may be very difficult. Paleontologists continue to find new fossils that lead to renaming of sharks. As we previously discussed, when the genus of a tooth is known, but the species cannot be clearly identified after the genus name, the abbreviations SP or SPP are used. SP stands for singular species, and SPP indicates several species are likely. The geological age of the tooth is critical. Was it found in situ, S-I-T-U, meaning it was found in the sediment or the rock where it was buried? or was it found as float, F-L-O-A-T, meaning it was found on a beach and has been washed out of its original burial site? The geological age of the rock where it's found is critical for its identity. While most of the shark's teeth that I have shown are an inch or longer in size, the vast majority of shark's teeth are under an inch long. Using screens with small openings, perfectly preserved micro shark's teeth can be collected. This is the end of the focus on a shark's tooth crown. The next pictures will show characteristics of the roots. Next, please. Excuse me a second. The second significant shark's tooth structure is its roots. The root is the last part of a tooth to develop. First, the enamel forms, then the dentine inner part of the crown fills in. Finally, the root develops. The root is under the gums and holds the tooth in the shark's cartilaginous jaws. Unlike human teeth, whose roots go into bone, a shark's tooth is far easier to be knocked out of the shark's cartilaginous jaws. The original root material is replaced by other minerals. Root shapes are specific to different types of sharks. The root shape varies from a V, a U, a Z, or a rectangle. Next picture, please. The lingual side of some roots may have a transverse groove, a nutrient groove, or a central foramen, a circular opening. These all serve to bring blood and nutrients to the tooth. So their teeth, like our teeth, needed to have a supply, a blood supply, and a nutrient supply in order for them to grow and to stay healthy. Next picture, please. A single shark tooth pictured is, this single shark's tooth pictured is from a hammerhead shark. I got cut off at the top, I'm sorry. Hammerhead teeth have a deep notch in its crown's distal side. So here we're again using the term distal, and you see that notch on both the lingual and the labial sides of the tooth are shown. This is a single tooth, again showing the front and the back, the lingual and the labial side. However, whichever way you turn it, the distal side is going to show the deep notch. This tooth has a deep nutrient groove, which you can clearly point it out there in the picture, in the basal area of the root toward its distal side. Again, it's slightly off center, facing toward the distal side. So which side on these two, in this picture, the left side tooth is what view of the tooth? If you said it's the lingual side, you would be right. That's on the left. The labial or display side, which is what you would see if the shark was attacking you, is on the right. Next picture, please. The ends of a root are called lobes. Lobes may or may not be rounded. Some roots have a raised protruding area called a torus on the lingual side. The apical end of this tooth crown changes direction. This is called recurved. The recurved crown would help prevent prey from moving out of the mouth as the shark fed. If you would, Bronwyn, point out the anterior tooth again, showing on here. This tooth is identified as the first lower anterior tooth on the left-hand side. It says first lower anterior down a little bit, down toward the bottom of the blue. There you go. This means that it's the first front tooth after the right and left parts of the jaw meet. Anterior teeth are usually the largest teeth in a shark's jaw. Unfortunately, these pictures did not list tooth size, and I really can't tell you what the size of this tooth is. It's just probably magnified to some extent. That looks a little too big for that tooth, but it's probably about an inch, maybe a little over an inch long, I think. Next picture, please. We're back to my favorite shark. These cow shark teeth, their roots are flattened and squarish, rectangular, if you would. So you've seen that. Now let's look at a few of the online shark tooth identification guides. You may want to write down their addresses. Next picture, please. All right, this shark's guide, tooth guide, is a useful guide on the internet. It's a WikiHow. It's a basic guide. It contains a lot of information. So you can find that under WikiHow. All right, next picture. These are all free guides. Fat Fossils, P-H-A-T, fossils.com shows many pictures of shark's teeth. Clicking on the picture will bring up specific information about that tooth. So again, you can go online, type in fatfossils.com, and you have access to their guide, which gives you a lot of information. Next picture, please. This guide is put out by Elasmo, elasmo.com, which is a very useful guide, very well written material that you can find on the internet. Let's do a quick review of the information needed to identify a fossil shark's tooth. We need to know where the tooth was found, what county, what state, what locality. That has to do with being able to identify what the age of the tooth would be. And that's the next step. What is the geological age of the rock formation? If the tooth was found in situ, S-I-T-U, meaning it was found where it was buried, found in the very rock it was buried in, or the sediment it was buried in, or was it found as float on a beach? And if it was found as float on a beach, you don't know what formation it really came from. So you need to look at what other fossils were found nearby that would help in identifying the geological age, or looking to see what offshore ages of rock formations there were that might help you identify where this tooth came from. You need to look at and identify the features of the shark's tooth crown and the characteristics of its root. Tooth size, the height and width, is also important because certain sharks had teeth that were limited in size, and it would only, if it was a larger tooth, it would rule out that individual shark, and if it was a smaller tooth, it may indicate a posterior tooth, or it could possibly mean another shark. With all the above information, use of an online guide will help you identify the genus and species of the shark tooth that you have found. Next picture, please. Dr. Stephen Godfrey, curator of paleontology at the Calvert Marine Museum, has made this volume available, The Geology and Vertebrate Paleontology of Calvert Cliffs, Maryland, USA. There's a section in here on sharks by Dr. Breton Kent, and it's a recent description of Miocene sharks. He points out that there were more genera and species of fossil Miocene-age sharks and rays than in today's fauna of the mid-Atlantic states. Dr. Kent is a professor at the University of Maryland and is an authority on the fossils of the Chesapeake Bay region. This book has much useful information about the Calvert Cliffs area, and I highly recommend you take a chance to look this up. Again, you can access it by using on the right-hand side in the white area, by typing in SCP-100 in parentheses, capital VOR, end parentheses, .pdf. You have free access to it. On behalf of the Natural History Society, I hope that this program's information will help you better understand the fossil shark's teeth that you find. Next slide, please. Sharks first appeared about 450 million years ago in the late Ordovician period. Shark's teeth are more commonly found in the last 66 million years. Primarily, their teeth and some central parts of the vertebrae get fossilized. Scientists face many difficulties in correctly identifying fossil sharks. You and I can experience the thrill of finding a tooth from a shark that lived millions of years ago. With a little effort, we can understand more about how these ancient sharks lived. And so when we have the opportunity, let's go out there and have fun fossil hunting. And I hope to see you out on the beach. Take care. Thank you for your time and attention.
Hey, I have some questions from the audience here.
Okay.
So I'm going to start with Jessica Obi asked, what is the burlet? You covered that, but if you'd like to go over that just one more time, just a little bit.
The borlet is an area between the root of the tooth and the beginning of the enamel of the tooth. It's kind of in a V shape across the width of the top of the tooth crown and the root. And they believe it served a purpose in helping to being able to be affixed to the cartilaginous jaws and the gums of the tooth.
Yeah, so I'm just going to add to that. It's really prominent on Megalodon just because it's such a massive shark. It's where the tendons connect. So when it's going to bite, it actually pulls itself back into position when the mouth extends so that it can jam into the shark. And you kind of have two teeth pointing backwards. It's a very strong tooth. Next question.
Thank you, Mason.
Also from Jessica Obi, she noticed that you called it Ototus Megalodon, and she'd seen Carcharocles Megalodon used.
Well, the consensus seems to be among paleontologists that they're changing the genus name from Carcharocles to Ototus because the relationships of the, it gets beyond my ability to explain all the biological stuff involved, but they're thinking that it should more properly be classified in the Ototus genus rather than the former.
Yeah,
do you have anything you want to add to that, Mason?
I definitely say don't change your labels too quickly if you have Carcharocles all over them. Us scientists like to change things rather without warning. Next, we have a question from Jennifer Snodgrass and Bryce. Are there any great spots in DMV to hunt for shark's teeth? DMV, I assume, meaning District of Columbia, Maryland, and Virginia.
I'm sorry, I couldn't hear part of the question. Are there any great spots to what?
Hunt for fossil shark teeth.
Along Calvert Cliffs is a great place to hunt for fossil sharks. We're very fortunate here in Maryland. We have Calvert Cliffs area. Unfortunately, there's only certain public areas you can get into. Most of it's private land. There's also along the Potomac River, there are different age sharks found there, and you can find shark's teeth along the Potomac River area.
And if you join the Natural History Society of Maryland, you sometimes get access to Stratford Hall, one of the best places on the East Coast to fossil hunt, and it's along the Potomac on the Virginia side.
Yeah, and as Mason is saying, one of the great ways to get access to some of these places is by joining a fossil club like the Natural History Society of Maryland's club. There's other clubs in the area as well. Depending on where you live, you may find them more convenient.
Now, Denise Hayes asks, so if they didn't have parasymphysials, would they have a gap in the middle of the jaw?
what I've seen, I'm not going to claim to be an expert about that. That tooth actually grows at the point where the left and right jaws meet together. And it serves, I'm not exactly sure of the purpose that it serves there, because it is a much smaller tooth than the other teeth, but I guess it's again a way to make sure there's no gap as the shark bites down in terms of its ability to cut into the animal, the prey it's attacking. Most sharks, especially those attacking whales and things of that nature, they're not killing they're not continuously attacking the animal. Most of these, as they've seen a great deal of evidence, they're finding a lot of fossil shark's teeth in the tail vertebrae of whales. They seem like they're going to attack the whale in the tail. They'll bite it there, let it bleed out in effect. And then after the animal has been weakened and is bled out, they will go in and begin to tear pieces out and not be worried about being harmed in any way by this big whale thrashing around or a big seal thrashing around either.
And I would like to add that, yeah, most sharks have a symphysial, which is in the direct middle, or a parasymphysial, which is they have two on each side of the middle. The only ones that don't have teeth that are just too big, they don't have enough room in their jaw in the middle. For a long time, there was a vicious debate over whether Megs had symphysials. It turned out they do. It's just a little vestigial thing they just happen to have room for. We have Rachel Schenk asked, how many feet tall is Megalodon?
How many what?
Feet tall is Megalodon. It's a strange. That's a dimension we usually get asked how long is a Megalodon, but
yeah, that's what I was running. Unfortunately, like I was saying, the cartilage that makes up the shark's body isn't preserved, and they have found very little bit of that, but not very much. And so, in fact, we really don't know what a Megalodon actually, in truth, looked like. They have made reconstructions. There's a very nice one at the Calvert Marine Museum, a very large Megalodon shark there. And they put together their best guesses and thinking and what scientific information they have to reconstruct it. But if you had to say absolutely for sure, we don't know.
And I looked up the most recent reconstruction. Like Tom said, it's really just a shot in the dark. But they came out with 14 feet tall at the normal area, and then at the dorsal fin, you know, what you see in Jaws when it's coming at you. If you counted that, then it would be 28 feet tall. They also asked, the same person, Rachel Schenk, how long does it take a shark tooth to grow back?
How long does it take a shark's tooth to grow back?
Yeah.
Well, the sharks have a whole series of teeth behind their main working row. They have other teeth that are constantly growing, and they're the first row or two behind, I would assume, are pretty much fully formed. So if a front tooth falls out or they're shedding teeth, these other teeth move, like in a conveyor belt, they describe it, and they move forward. It usually takes between a day or two for them to fill in the tooth that's been lost. So they don't run around toothless for very long.
Very good answer.
One of the things I might just mention that has nothing to do with the question, but just to throw in there, you may have ever heard the term cookie cutter shark. It wasn't but a few years ago that they actually learned they kept finding these sharks and other fish that had perfectly round circles that are cut out of the fish, and they didn't know what caused that. And they finally discovered this shark they now call cookie cutter shark, because it'll latch on with its teeth. It will swirl its body around and cut out a perfect circle of flesh, which it then proceeds to eat. But these sharks, the cookie cutter sharks, replaced their entire row of teeth at one time, and then would get a new row of teeth fall into place. So that's one group of sharks that completely replaced all their teeth at one time. When I say all their teeth, I'm talking their working row of teeth, not all. There are still back growing teeth that form.
Very, very interesting. George F. Spiga, our paleontology curator, asks, is there a definite guide to all the shark species found at Calvert Cliffs?
I would think probably Dr. Kent's material is probably the best overall guide for all the sharks that can be found at Calvert Cliffs. That would be my guess.
I would 100% agree. The one he showed, and also there's an older publication called the Sharks of the Chesapeake Bay region, which is also very good. Any comments? Did you know Xenacanthus existed when the Dimetrodon existed? Xenacanthus being a Permian age shark with two teeth that kind of look like that, and Dimetrodon being the giant sail-backed mammal-like reptile. Comment? I hadn't thought of it that way, so that was a good comment. I have run out of questions. Thank you for the awesome talk, Tom. I loved it.
Oh, great, thanks.
Thank you, Tom. I
You're
look
welcome.
around and everybody does look a little bit, no, a lot smarter than they did when we started. So you did a great job. Now it's everybody else's turn to take the knowledge that you've given them and for them to share it with other people so that we can spread smartness all over the world. And that's what the world needs, a lot of smartness these days.
All right, thank you, Bronwyn. Thank you, Mason. Appreciate your help.
Now, one thing, a lot of people had shark's teeth at their house, and I see that they like to go out hunting. One of the things that the Fossil Club does when it's not a global pandemic is we meet monthly at the Natural History Society of Maryland's facility and museum in Overley, and they have a lot of times they welcome you to bring in your own fossils and your teeth, and they can do some IDing and some swapping and whatnot. So keep that in mind as we move forward and try to get back to a normal situation. Again, thank you so much for spending an evening with us. We have a lot of other programs coming up to feed and build your curiosity muscle. So I hope to see you again very soon. Information about joining the Fossil Club can be found on our website at www.marylandnature.org. We also have a YouTube channel with original programming on there. So if you can't find anything on Netflix, check us out on YouTube. We have a blog, great Facebook feed, and one of the other aspects of joining one of the clubs, there are private Facebook groups for each of our clubs so that all of the fossil people can kind of gather together virtually online and do their fossil thing. So again, thank you so much. Everybody stay safe. Thank you, Tom, and happy fossil hunting, everybody.
I'm sorry, Bronwyn, I had to step away for a moment. Is anything?
Everybody's just saying thank you, 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 thank you.
Well, that's nice. I'm glad. I hope it was useful and understandable.
I certainly learned a lot, and this is all new to me, so I'm a sponge right now for anything fossils. And based on everybody else's comments, I think everybody enjoyed it as well. So
okay, great.
I hope it worked out. Our system seemed to work out okay. Everybody taking a different aspect of the presentation.
Okay.
We'll teach you how to use the PowerPoint online next time, Tom.
Okay.
And Bronwyn, I'll send you the records that I got.
Thank you. And can you find a way to save the chat, Mason?
Yes, I can save the chat and send it to you as well.
Thanks. All right. Any other questions? Ask. Annie, you got a question there? You like to go hunting for shark teeth? Good.
I hope everybody stays healthy and safe out there. Happy holidays.
Absolutely. Take care, everybody.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye.